What's up, it's the Coaster Craze, and in my newest coaster review, I'm talking about Green Lantern, the B&M stand-up roller coaster located at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. So it actually originally opened up as Chang at Kentucky Kingdom, but was relocated in 2011 to Six Flags Great Adventure, which is a park I go to a lot, but as I'll talk about in the review, I haven't ridden this coaster very often because my opinions, right off the bat, I'm going to say it, aren't the most favorable. Anyway, let's just cover the stats first. And they're really impressive for a stand-up coaster. This is the second largest. The largest, of course, is Riddler's Revenge, located at Six Flags Magic Mountain, but this is one of the biggest around. I was shocked to see it actually has over 4,000 feet of track, which usually would be a really good thing. In this case, not so much. It's actually 1 minute and 3 seconds on ride drop to break duration, which is super impressive. So the stats are phenomenal. Packs in 5 inversions, but the other categories, well, they falter a bit. So the theming and scenery, it is a parking lot coaster, I would say. It was a replacement for Great American Scream Machine, and it's on a flat piece of land, right next to the parking lot. There is a little bit of decoration, in that there's a pretty nice plaza with the Green Lantern sign and stuff, and you pass over one of the aircrafts that the Green Lantern flies. I think Hal Jordan, because he used to be a pilot, and the stations seem to be Ferris Air, which is the airline in the comics and the film that Hal Jordan works for. But there's really minimal theming. You also actually pass through Sinestro's fire ring or whatever on the drop before going to the loop, which is kind of a cool near miss element. I will say that, especially because you're standing. But overall, there's very little theming, and the scenery, of course, sucks because it's a parking lot coaster. So now we're moving on to what I think is the big detractor here, of course, the restraints and the smoothness. So there's the B&M stand-up restraints, which aren't the most comfortable. Lots of guys complain about it on a certain spot. For some reason, I haven't had too much of a problem here, but my main problem is always with the ear bashing, the head banging on those really thick horse collar over the shoulder restraints that hurt so much. So most of this ride, you will be banging like crazy. So basically, just to walk through the layout and the roughness that attributes to the layout, you go up the left hill, make a 180-degree turn, go down a straight drop, which is pretty cool for a stand-up coaster, even though it's only 45 degrees angle of descent. So after that, you go into the big vertical loop, which is really fun. So these first two elements are great. I actually love them. After this, I hate this ride so much. So it just starts headbanging like crazy. After the loop, you go into a dive loop that's rough, then this elevated helix. You go into Incline Loop, which, yeah, it seems cool because you don't see Incline Loops very often, but that's the worst element on this ride. It hurts so much. You'd think maybe Incline Loops wouldn't be that bad, considering, at least for me on Hydra, I love that Incline Loop. It did not give any headbang, but for some reason on this one, maybe it's because it's a stand-up coaster, it just did not work at all. You hit the mid-course breaker after some little banks and turns and stuff, then you go into a corkscrew, some more banks, another corkscrew, and the brake run. So it's not the most innovative layout by any means. The Incline Loop is probably the most unique part. There's really not much to it, even though it goes on for a while. But it's just so many of the versions hurt so much. I'm bracing for them, and then the turns are either boring or a little bit painful too in the head bashing when they're more aggressive side-to-side transitions. The strange thing is that the other large-scale B&M stand-up, which I've actually ridden, Riddler's Revenge, I found super enjoyable and not too rough at all, only a couple moments of headbanging. But this one, I've ridden it towards the front, I've ridden the back row, and geez, no matter what, it just hurts so much. So yeah, restraints and smoothness, not good. Maybe it hurt being relocated, I'm not sure, because I have heard favorable things about Chang. But yeah, that's the big detractor from this ride. Because even though the layout's not the most ingenious, it still has some really impressive stats, and the intensity is not bad at all either. It's, again, not the most intense coaster, it's pretty spread out, but it still packs in a lot of elements. And then just a quick tip, so this coaster is pretty reliable. I've seen it down a few times before, but usually it's open. It's a B&M, and it's very high capacity, which is nice. Of course, it will get a bit of a line because, one, it's popular for some reason, and two, it takes a good amount of time to load the restraints just because they're the stand-up kind, the bicycle restraints, where they take a little bit of a combination. But there's a really great trick with this one. I don't know why it's not offered at any of the other coasters at Great Adventure, because this is the one that sucks. But you can go in the single rider line, and it just shortens the wait so much. So almost all the times I've ridden it, I've done it with the single rider line, and it's been so helpful because I won't have to wait in a long line for such a bad ride, because that's like the worst feeling ever. So there it is, that saving grace. So I definitely recommend finding that. It should be pretty clearly labeled, and it'll take you around the queue, and you don't lose anything because of course this isn't like a themed queue or anything. So I highly recommend that. Even if you're riding with a group, I would say just try to go on the single rider line. This is not worth a long wait, unless of course it's a short wait anyway, then there's no point. But that will lead me to my overall score. So there's not a ton to say with this coaster just because I don't really enjoy it much. Yeah, those first two elements with the drop and loop are super fun, and there's a really fun head chopper, like I mentioned before, on the drop. And maybe occasionally some of the other elements won't give you the worst head banging, but there's a lot of just side-to-side rattle. I don't even know if it's the track's that rough. I think it's really just the restraint system is just not working well. And I really hope Great Adventure removes this for a much better coaster. I think this would actually be a great floorless treatment. Of course, they already have Bizarro, which is unfortunate. So I think that, at least in my opinion, what would be great is if they move Green Lantern to another park and give it the floorless trains. Because at my home park, Apocalypse, which was an even worse Sam coaster, it sucked. They gave it floorless trains, and now Firebird, I love. I go on it every time I go to Six Flags America. So I think that would be a great change here. Anyway, for my overall score, out of 10, I'll be giving Green Lantern at Great Adventure a 4. Yep, pretty bad, definitely a below average coaster. And just to note, this isn't on the scale of B&M stand-ups, this is on the scale of coasters overall. I think this is a very weak roller coaster. The stats, yes, they're super impressive, and they fit with Great Adventure's large-scale coasters. But this ride is just so dang rough. I do not enjoy riding it. I don't ride it very often anymore. It just really does hurt. I know some people that actually do enjoy this ride, but it seems like the vast majority of enthusiasts feel fairly similarly. B&M stand-up coasters, they're just not very fun. Stamps in general, they haven't aged well. It's not a comfortable ride system. So that's my review. I hope you enjoyed watching. Comment down below your opinions on Green Lantern. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Coaster Craze for tons of new content coming soon. Check out the playlist right here of tons of other coaster reviews that I've done. I have plenty of other videos on my channel. So appreciate watching. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.